name's Rachel McLeod. I am a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today we're going to talk about a really big topic. It's a really powerful topic, really painful and intense topic, but so fantastic to resolve because it is so powerful and painful and big. So when we resolve that, we get a lot of transformation, a lot of healing, a lot of growth, a lot of open doors. Gosh, this is one of the things that when we resolve, we get so much inner healing. And so it's an awful topic, but it's native to who we are as humans and more common than we know because every one of us have the ability to do this because we all have all the emotions. We don't just have some of the emotions. And so today, what we're going to be talking about is when self hatred is the root of body pains, self harm, and inner stability. And so self hatred is really the topic I want to discuss with you in depth a bit today. This hatred is an emotion, and it's an emotion that your system will use and will process to create your growth and wellness. Your system is not the prefrontal cortex, your inner healer, or the part of you that weaves your subconscious programming and your ways of being and all these things for you really doesn't see self-hatred is bad. Your body doesn't. It's actually an appropriate response to things going on. The deal is we really need to get it processed. Emotion is it's meant to come up and it's supposed to move through the brain's healing process, right? It's kind of like you eat stuff, it's supposed to break it down and then you're supposed to use it or get rid of it. It's like, oh, we don't need this here. Emotions are the same way. They're supposed to come up, they're supposed to be processed. Your brain's supposed to do the things with them and build. So this is not a good or bad thing. This is not something that, um, gosh, that we want to be ashamed of having or finding in our inner world. We will all find this in our inner world. It's what are we going to do with it and what's it doing? Is this processed self-hatred? Because it really doesn't stand in the form of self-hatred, if that's the case. Or is this self-hatred that's still very powerful? Can you recall it? Say, oh yeah, I used to feel self-hatred about this. Can you believe that? Or is it something that still happens to you, that's still showing up in your body, that is still showing up in your lack of stability? And so the families that can process this emotion will get a lot of growth. You'll find lots of inner stability. You'll find you won't find this stuff showing up in our body. This is a massive cause for emotional eating, alcohol use, drugs use, numbing, distracting. This is a big cause of those things. This is the root issue. If your brain is like, oh, here's some self-hatred. Hey, why don't you let me walk you through my healing process and complete this process. It's just a different material. It's not oh my gosh, it's just flooding my system's shutting down, there's no processing going on, and I'm just radiating self-hatred, and now I have to do something with it. And so what happens here is that I want you to also understand the body has an expression of every single emotion that you have. That's what we call somatic, the body's expression of emotion. And we have somatic stuff all the time. Your body's feeling all the emotions all the time. Sometimes we're talking about somatic distress, and that's where your body is expressing distress around the emotions you're experiencing. This is natural and how it works. It's supposed to work like this. And that's part of it. The body's sending the information up about its experience with this emotion into your prefrontal cortex, your inner healer, or inner weaver. I wish it had a really cool name. Prefrontal cortex is great, but it's like I want a word that just does it, because this part of your brain is what creates everything you see outside of yourself, along with the help of your subconscious mind and your body. But your body's job is to communicate. It's this big tool, like an antenna. It's feeling all these things, and it's supposed to tell you about it. How do you feel about this? And when you look in the mirror, well, your body's supposed to tell you. And if you're feeling self hatred when you look in the mirror, your body's going to tell you, and you're going to feel it move through your system. Does it get through the process and the self hatred diminish and go away and go back to work, waiting for the next time it needs to give a report? Or does it come up, radiate, and then create a lot of pain? And a lot of times when it's not moving, it's also creating flashbacks. And yeah, and we've had this, it can be a really big mess when it doesn't actually do what emotions are supposed to do. And hear me, that these emotions that register in the brain as pain, the negative ones, the painful emotions, they have a very difficult time making it through your brain's healing process. Your brain needs to have a lot of practice with this. Your brain needs to have a really nice program. Oh, let's run the hatred processing program right now. If you don't have that built, if you don't have a process built, your system's going to crash. And that's where we'll see this body pain stay in your body. I want to give you some examples of this. I have a client who has self hatred, um, and I'm not going to use that one. We're working on that. I want to say that there's like, it's common to have self hatred start burning people's stomach. It's common to have self hatred be a trigger in the gut or in the chest that must be soothed with things like food. um, it's really common to, because when your system isn't processing emotion, it doesn't mean your body's not like, hey, your body's like, I'm sending the information up, that's what I do. It doesn't know, hey, the survival system's freaking out about it, and so it's still sending information. The healing process is stuck, and so all this self-hatred is jamming up against your system and flooding you, right? It doesn't know that the process isn't working. Its process is working just fine. The rest of the process is not working just fine. And so you'll notice these body aches staying there for years, for decades. I was just working with somebody who we found a somatic sensation that originated in fourth grade, right? Their body's still doing that. They learn this is how they do it, and they're still doing it. The body still thinks this is what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, when we're in these kind of situations, bring on the stomach pain, right? It thinks that that's the right response because that's what it did then, and it hasn't stopped doing it because it hasn't made it through the process where the brain would actually use that information, create a way of being with it, and then it actually starts reinforming the whole system and new things happen. And then the body is like, oh, we don't need to do it like that anymore. And then all of a sudden, that sensation doesn't show up anymore. And it's part of the healing process. Once your stomach gets to send that full report up, even though that report is 20 years old, that report of self-hatred, I'm not good enough, I never was good enough, I don't get to love myself, all that report, it's just garbage report. It's not actually literal. It's just emotion. But because it doesn't get through, your brain can't figure out that it's just emotion. So it actually thinks this is some real stuff. And so it can be the cause of what you're feeling when your stomach is on fire, your legs feel like they're heavy, or you feel like you have an elephant sitting on your chest, or you've got tension radiating through your shoulders, or headaches. Some of that stuff really, uh, my entire process is to find symptoms and find the origin of them. And your body tells you what the origin is. You'll watch your brain make the associations, and you'll see the whole association, and then you help your brain process this and it really goes away. It's like, oh, that was it. Yep, that was it. Doesn't have to make a lot of sense, but we find stuff from a year ago, from 20 years ago, from wherever, and it's still stuck in the body. And then we resolve that and it doesn't come back. I had one client, we worked on some somatic distress. I don't know if it was in the self-hatred family. They had neck problems. They didn't have neck problems anymore that time after they processed that emotion, whatever that was. The other thing that's important here is that emotion is why we do what we do. Um, it's the fuel for our activities and our behaviors. That seems really simple, but when your behaviors are being fueled with unprocessed self-hatred, you're going to see your behavior be self-hating because that's what it's being fueled with. Once the brain can convert somatic distress, anything, any emotion, it's going to convert it into a usable form that works for you really well, right? So anytime the brain does this, it no longer doesn't feel like pain anymore because it's been gone through the brain's converting process, and so it comes out as something entirely different. And a lot of times it's just a memory, just like okay, I can remember that. doesn't have a charge, it doesn't have a feeling anymore. And so, but if you're fueling your behavior, and you don't get to choose this, this is just how we operate. But if you're fueling your behavior, self-hatred, you're going to get pain, and you're going to get hatred. Like eating, right? Eating, you can fuel that with peace and joy, and you can feel, self-love. You can fuel it with anything. But as soon as you hook up self-hatred on it, it's going to become a self-destructive pattern. And it's not because you're bad or there's anything wrong, it's because the emotion fueling it is self-hatred. That's just how we work. It's the concept of hurt people hurt people. Hurt inside of you is going to cause you to hurt yourself. And that's why we have these self-harming activities and behaviors that we do. And I'm not just talking about the ones that we can see that are obvious, that, like cutting. This is also self criticism. This is also self sabotage. This is also um, staying in cycles that are no longer serving us. This is also shrinking back. This is also the things that really cause us pain. And a lot of times it's because we can't process this one emotion. Our brain does not process self hatred. And so it sticks around, and it gets to show up in our life and color what we're doing. And really, we are painting our life with the fuel of emotions. And so it's like you go into your back of your brain over here where emotions play around. I'm sure there's a place. And you're dipping your paint, excuse me, you're dipping your paintbrush into self hatred, and you're painting your life. It will look like self hatred. And that's not because you're bad or you're wrong. It's because your brain is using it. It hasn't processed the self hatred. It's going to use the emotion. It's either going to use it from a processed form or an unprocessed form. Those are your options. And so that's why we want your brain to be great at processing self hatred. It's just fuel. It's not, you shouldn't be self hating. You should love yourself. No, it's not about that. It's about your system's getting the fuel source of self hatred, and it needs to process that fuel source, or it's going to come spraying through your life unprocessed in the form of self hatred. Self hatred, when broken down, really is a lot of information about you, about your preferences, about your expectations, your ideas. Not all of that is accurate, but all of that is helpful, because your prefrontal cortex will take that information and say, oh, this is right, this is wrong. Oh, this is somebody else's belief. This isn't ours. This is, and all of a sudden it gets it. And it's like, oh, I know what to do with this. And it no longer sees it as a threat. And it actually gets wiser and smarter all the time. So I want you to hear me say, don't be afraid of self hatred, get it processed. Also, don't hate yourself for having self hatred. You get to, right? Because self hatred is this is what it does. But if you've got self hatred and you're processing it, great. Your brain makes self acceptance from that. It makes self knowledge. It makes wisdom. It makes so many awesome things from processed self hatred. So, yeah, it's really fantastic to be working through that. Okay, I have a couple of other points I want to make on this. Is that um, there are lots of things why people are not emotionally stable. There are lots of reasons we want to jump inside I want to jump inside people's inner world and figure out, whoa, there's some instability in here. What's up with that? What's this made of? And it's usually made of some pretty and powerful emotions that have not yet been processed. They're emotions that will register as pain. And so those are the ones we want to manually walk through the brain's healing process. We're going to do it very systematically and in a way that your brain will tolerate. So, but self hatred is one of those that will rock your core. It will have you, when it comes up, it will have you jump into your inner world and tear everything off the shelves in your mind, all your memories, all your self criticism. It'll just, and pour them all over your head. And that makes you very unstable as that's happening. And so a lot of times when we can get this self hatred processed, you get all this stability. Your brain no longer does with self hatred what it used to do with self hatred, which is rock your whole world. All of a sudden, it can come and go, and you just keep moving. And you're like, oh, there was a big wave of self hatred. It just got processed. Yeah, let's go. You don't stop having emotions. And I would love to tell you, you're never going to have self hatred again, but it's an emotion. Hatred is emotion. And I've been playing around thinking about what is this stuff made of? Like if they're building blocks. And I think hatred is made from not being able to have boundaries or not being able to filter out what you don't want and keep in what you do want. And that starts to create frustration and anger and rage. And then after a while, when you still can't create the shift that you need to keep yourself protected, then hatred is there, whether it's somebody else is violating you or you're allowing yourself to be violated, which, and you can't stop it. That's when hatred will start to show up. That's the pattern I see. If you see a different pattern, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So it seems like hatred in general, it has some very specific ingredients as far as I'm concerned and what I've witnessed. Um, but regardless, it's an emotion that has to be processed. We don't have to judge it. We don't even have to understand what it's made of to help your brain process it. With the right support, your brain can process this in minutes. And this is when we go on self-hatred hunts and we process this one and this one and this one. And then we go hunting. And there's a lot of brain tricks to be able to pull up decades old self-hatred, the root issue, all the things, and really clean up the unprocessed self-hatred in your life. And so I encourage you, if this is your issue, do that work. You're going to love it. You are going to love it. This is how you stop passing down self-hatred to your children. This is how you stop self-hatred showing up in your relationships, your marriages, your partnerships, your work. This is how you end the power that self-hatred has in your life. Process it. And especially the old stuff, it doesn't go away. You can't bury that. You can't suppress it. It's just, it keeps moving through your system. It's information that has to be processed. It's fuel. So, how do we get this? Where do we get self-hatred coming up? And we get it from a couple of places. One is early experiences, especially early experiences that were painful and we couldn't process and that we blamed ourselves. Those ones that's where the origin of some of these things are. Those ones we want to help your brain reprocess. We want your brain to be able to get in there and scrub out the self-hatred, to grab kind of like a vacuum, right? You get up in there and you suck out all the self-hatred and you pull it through the brain's healing process. I'm sure that's how it works. That's how I do it. And so you want to get that out of there, because once that powerful charge of emotion and fuel is gone, all of a sudden there's nothing blocking your brain from getting in there and doing the healing work. Your survival system is not going to be like running around it, blocking everybody out, get away from here. It's going to just process and you're going to understand these things. It's awesome. But early experiences can really be the cause of this. And then they're reinforced along the way. If you don't get it processed in early childhood, your brain will keep making associations that to it equals this self hatred thing. And so by the time you get to be older, you'll have a whole mountain of stuff that your brain has said, oh, let's put the self hatred process on this. I think that's where it goes. I think it goes right here. And next thing you know, when those things happen, you feel self hatred because that's what your brain has learned. And so we want to a lot of times if we can resolve the early one, your brain will be like, "Oh, all of these are wrong. Let's recategorize these. Oh, wait, shouldn't even be in here." And then it will start processing those ones and they have been recategorized. They have been categorized incorrectly. They should not be evidences of why you should hate yourself. That's not what should be stored in your subconscious mind. You should have evidence of why you should love yourself. And you should also have ones where you're like, okay, and over here it's accurate that I'm incompetent over here. So let's flag those as need to learn, right? Not as self-hatred opportunities. And so doing the early work can make a powerful impact. I like to go as early as possible. Not everybody can do that. And there's nothing wrong if you can't. There's other strategies for this. But I like to go as early as possible because then the brain can run backwards and start recategorizing, and run forwards and start recategorizing from this point of change. Everything after there starts healing and clearing up. That's really, really powerful. Sometimes you actually need to go through the more current stuff, and then the brain will say, "Oh, I think we're ready to do this early one," and then you can get in there and do that. And now, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about like 10, 20 minutes each one. I'm not talking about years of work. Brains do this stuff very quickly. Um, Another place you may have gotten self hatred from is the adults modeling this for you. If you grew up with a parent or a relative or a friend who was self-hating, your system was already practicing that using your mirroring neurons in your brain. And so you were practicing it while you were watching them. That's one of the reasons why people say choose your friends, because you will become like them. It's because we have these mirroring neurons that are we're actually practicing the behaviors of others and mapping them out, even though we're not practicing them, even though we may not believe in them. And so, especially in early childhood, this is how we are learning. We are learning how to treat ourselves by watching others. So if you have a family member who was self-hating, then you're going to want to jump in your inner world and make sure your brain knows how to process self-hatred accurately, because your brain is going to, your emotions, your brain is going to pull from self-hatred more frequently because it's going to know how to do that. And it's going to have a better and stronger practice of it, right? It's practiced it even though you weren't practicing it. Your mirroring neurons were mirroring them, and so your system was practicing self-hatred. And so um, that's really um, important work to clear out that modeling by adults. Now, I hear people say to me, but I didn't have any trauma. I don't know why I have this. And the deal is that you picked this up from them. They taught you how to do this. And that doesn't, I mean, I'm sure they were I hope they were doing their best. I can't say I'm sure they were doing their best because humans, but regardless, if they were, you will also be susceptible to this. And it's important to just help your brain. It doesn't need to tell your brain, knock it off, it's not ours. Just, okay, you think that's what you're supposed to do with self hatred? I get it. Let's go and help your brain figure out to do something different with this. Um, and so, um, so what okay, and the last reason that this could be showing up in your inner world is because your brain just isn't processing the emotion. It's like it came up and it's not processing it. And that's like my overarching reason. That's really the only one I care about. How you got it, I mean, I think that that's important. It's so important for people for many people to figure out, oh, this is the origin. Prefrontal cortex love to understand this. So if you've got a prefrontal cortex, which all of us do, you want to know where the origin was and what makes sense here. But honestly, to help your brain heal, you don't need to know that. And ultimately, all you need to know is this is not being processed well. Let's go. Let's do the work to process this, and let's teach your brain how to process this well. Um, what this unprocessed self-hatred becomes is, I wrote down a list. It becomes this is what the barrier of self-love is. If it's rooted in, it can be rooted in many different issues, but we're talking today about how self-hatred can be the problem of all these things. So that the focus is on self-hatred. So, but it can be what is blocking self-love. It can be what is blocking self-care. It can be what is blocking self-development. It can be what is blocking growth and your joy. It can be this one emotion. Emotions are what block all of these processes. Emotions block the growth process. Really, pain blocks the growth process. And some of these emotions register as pain. And so it's such an honor to find an emotion, a painful emotion, a pain registering emotion that your brain is not processing well, and help it process that, because then it learns a new way of being with that emotion, and your life gets better, and you will start noticing the ripple effects of healing right away. There's some really big, like if you can process shame and or self-hatred, you're getting massive wins. But these also become beliefs. So the emotion starts combining with thoughts that become beliefs. I think that's what makes up subconscious programming, our beliefs. And I think the equation for beliefs is thought plus emotion. And so if you have a thought and you have a powerful emotion, your subconscious mind is like, ooh, bling, bling. Can I have that and store that in the depths? It's so beautiful. But it doesn't read and say, oh, this is a bad emotion that's going to destroy my life, or this is a good emotion, it's going to make my life awesome. It's going to be great. It's just blingy, but it's really capturing something that will fuel your behaviors for a long time, and it's going to take it deep into your subconscious mind. fabulous, right? So, but these beliefs, like I don't deserve to love myself, that's just a thought, but it's packed with this self-hatred stuff. So now it becomes that blingy thing, and your subconscious mind thinks it's so fabulous. The real solution is all you got to do is scrub off that self-hatred and get it through your processor, and all of a sudden your subconscious mind is looking at some unblingified thought. And it's just like, what are you doing here? You are not fabulous enough. So it pushes it out and goes through your processor. And that's how we can release subconscious programming very quickly. You work with the emotional component of the problem. And so this whole I don't deserve love to love myself, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, all of that stuff, you just scrub that self-hatred off there, process that, and voila, all of a sudden those thoughts seem ridiculous to you. Seriously, that's the fun part. It's like, I can't believe I thought that. Well, that was a dumb belief. That was silly. Really, it can go from crying, it can go from intensity. That's emotional intensity. That's emotional pain making its way through your system, hopefully getting processed. But if not, it's still going to come through pain. And you can have that. And then the next thing you know, you get it processed and you're like, I can't believe I thought that. I can't believe I believed this was these many years. I can't tell you how many times I hear that, which is wonderful. But these limiting beliefs become limiting subconscious program which show up in your life as limitations, limiting your ability to calm, to relax, to be stable, to have intimacy, to have deep connections, to be able to show up strong and empowered and healthy and wise, um, in the areas that are the most important to you. It can be just a few emotions stuck in just a few places, and it can create massive challenges for you, massive invisible barriers. And to get these off your life are powerful. And then it's like you take these off your life, and all of a sudden it starts having a ripple effect throughout your connections, your relationships, your choices, your behaviors, how you decorate your home, how you drive, how you everything's impacted by processing emotion. So that's really what I wanted to share today, about self hatred, and this is a beautiful process. Your brain needs this kind of support. It needs this kind of relief. It needs this kind of empowerment to process something so intense. And if you have challenges showing up in your life, like emotional eating, self sabotage, self hatred, just the feeling of that running around in your mind, even if you're like, I'm coping well, right? Understand you're coping well, but what if we process that and you don't have to cope? What, and if you're noticing alcohol, you're noticing over exercising, overthinking, numbing, over distracting, some of those things, this could be it. And let's just resolve that. And all of a sudden, your system's like, oh, that I don't need to numb out. That pain isn't here anymore. I don't feel that pain. That's really where it's at. That's what we want. We don't want to force you to not distract. It's actually a brain function thing. And your brain is wise. It's got its own wisdom. Why is it distracting? That's what we want to know. And a lot of times self-hatred can be one of the things in there that's it's distracting because of. So this is really how you create health and wellness in your life and in your inner world. And if this is something you want to talk with me about, if this is something you want to see if I can help you overcome, because I have a process for this. And I am happy to make this very easy for you and provide you with a step-by-step strategy. And I'm even willing to walk with you step by step to help you walk through the process if you want. And so if that's something you want to talk with me about, grab a spot on my calendar by going to rachelmcleod.com/call. And I'll call you at the time that you choose. There's a small questionnaire afterwards, after you book your call, that helps you and me prepare for our time together. And if it's time for you to heal and to take this self-hatred off your life so that you can overcome the other things associated with it, like emotional eating or self-sabotage, all the things I just mentioned, let's do this. Let's have that conversation. Okay, there's a comment, so I'm going to answer that. Oh, yes, thank you, Megan. Megan says her self-hatred shows up in her neck and shoulders every time. Good self-awareness. that self-awareness piece is really one of the indicators of if somebody is ready to heal quickly. If you can be aware of it, because a lot of brains, if it's too painful, brains will make sure you're like you never see it. That's what denial is about, and filtering out the negative and mental filters. There's lots of brain tricks to avoid pain. And so an awareness feature, it means that's a great place to be. So um, I commend you, but I also thank you for sharing that because we need to be talking about this stuff. And as a matter of fact, I don't even know where my self-hatred shows up, but I can feel it. I can feel it. I'm gonna have to look. I just am like, oh, there you are. um, I had a really powerful experience a couple of months ago. I was at a training, and I was training on an intervention, and I knew that I was gonna like, I go to these things and I want to try them out. I'm like, we'll see if this stuff works, right? So I go with a list of issues. But at this time, I didn't go with it. I was like, I'm going for some self help hatred. If this self hatred clears, we'll see about this intervention. So they have you bring this picture of your child, and I know I'm in a flare of self hatred. I'm working on it, but I also am leaving it a little bit because I want to see. I'm not going after it hard, right? Because I want to see this what we're about to learn if it's all that it's cracked up to be. And so I go there, and they have you bring this picture of your child. You're a younger child. I'm looking at this picture and I feel sorry for this child. I don't want to look at the child. I'm angry. I don't think I've had a self-hatred moment like that one. And I see this. I see my younger self, and she looks sad, and I'm telling you, it just. And we go through the weekend learning the interventions, trialing the things, and we have that thing set up there, and we're talking about it in the beginning, and then at the end, we go back to pick up our picture. And I had already felt the self-hatred dissolve. And so I was like, okay, there, that is awesome. It passes, yes. But I already felt that. So I was already satisfied. But I go back to this picture of myself as a younger child. She looks happy. She looks confident. She looks secure. Talk about brain tricks. I'm telling you, that was not the same picture. And I'm also telling you, that is nobody went and switched my picture around. And the only thing that was different was the self-hatred filter that my brain was using, and the processed version of self-hatred. So that was really a fun, powerful event. So anyway, a little share from Rachel. Jill says, I absolutely myself hate myself, but my nurse manager who has a result of firing me. Oh, I'm not. I don't understand the typo. You might have got auto spell checked incorrectly. Yeah. So if you share that again, and I'm happy to read it and respond, Jill. Good to see you. It's been a while. Um, as you know, sometimes I people comment and I recognize the name. So anyway, wonderful connecting with you all. I hope this really gives you some food for thought. I hope that you are inspired to heal this. This is a brain process away from really transforming. And so, okay, so she says this. Okay, she hates me, I love myself. That's a great place to be. The people do feel hate, and that's the other thing, is that when you can process hate, that you process both sides. You process the hate that's coming towards you instead of having it jump in and destabilize you and grab your nervous system and do all that stuff. You can process that, and your brain will create with it and make new things, strong, empowering for you things. That's a cool process to watch. And you'll get to a place where your brain is like, oh, I allow them, I accept them to hate me, or it's even says, you know what, and logically I'm going to do X, Y, and Z because they really do, and I accept that. um I'm not going to keep a blind eye to it or something like that. So processing self-hatred and hatred in general is really, really powerful. So, okay. All right. So, good night, all. See you later. Take care. Bye.